So why am I such an advocate of gun handling? Because I'm alive today because some savage couldn't manipulate his folding stock AK-47. He had the drop on me all day long. He tried to press that selector lever 3 times. His inability to be able to manipulate his firearm cost him his life. So that's part why we harp at Warhog Tactical. Hey man, you've got to have good gun handling skills.
Hey, Rick, how's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich, for having me on. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, I've been familiar with your work for a long time. You've worked with Panio Productions, as have I, and some good stuff there. But this is the first time I got to talk to you, so I'm really looking forward to it. You have a very extensive military background, and you've sort of parlayed that into training, not just military, but law enforcement and also private citizens. So I want to get into all of that stuff. But let's start out by talking about your military career. I know that you were in special operations for like 29 years, 13 deployments between Iraq and Afghanistan, tons of real world experience that you're able to now provide to private citizens and law enforcement and give them sort of a unique perspective on stuff. But talk a little bit about, I know it's hard to sum up 29 years in very concisely, but tell me a little bit about your military background.
Yeah. So I started in the 82nd Airborne. From there I went to 7th Group and then spent the majority of my time, in special operations. But here's the thing. The key part is I think people need to understand with Warhog Tactical, it wasn't one of these things where I retired and I was looking for something to do. I knew in 2002, when the first group of guys that I was instructing at the Special Forces Advanced Urban Combat Committee came back from Afghanistan and said, hey, man, that stuff you taught me saved my life. That set the hook for Warhog Tactical. So you think this is 02. I didn't retire till 17. You get some combat experience under there. And then you can take that experience, whether it's your law-abiding citizen, military, law enforcement agency, and enhance their skills. God forbid they're ever in that deadly force encounter, they're coming back home. So that's just a quick snapshot. But I think it's important because a lot of people go, well, you're in this space because that's all you know. No, this is my passion. This is my love. This is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I'm there with you on that, brother. And it's important work for sure. And a lot of people may be well-meaning, but they don't have the credentials. And I don't mean that you have to necessarily be a tier 1 operator or a SWAT cop or whatever to have credentials. But some people have more to offer than others as far as real world training and experience. And you're definitely one of those guys with that. Tell us a little bit about Warhog Tactical, the types of classes that you do and how often are you traveling and training, et cetera?
Yeah. So Warhog Tactical, whether it's the law-abiding citizen, military, or law enforcement agency, classic pistol carbine, CQB, we do K9 training because I was a special forces or a special operations K9 handler as well. So we kind of reserve the K9 stuff more for our LE customers. We don't do that on the civilian side. Night vision, vehicle tactics, aerial gunnery. I mean, there's nothing when I have typically conversations with either agencies or military units. What do you need? What are you looking for? And then really for our civilians, it's mainly focused around the pistol. I'm not a red dot only guy because I don't want to sit there and have people show or not show up and not get training because they've only got iron sights. I don't care whether you got iron sights, red dot. We're still going to give you the instruction you need. Pistol carbine is primarily what we're focusing on with the civilians. And then we like to hit some of the indoor ranges around because the beauty with the indoor ranges is now I can do low light training with our civilians that they don't get a lot of exposure to. Some of these ranges have, noise restrictions. So, hey, when it starts getting at that dusk point, the range is shutting down. So you really can't do things like that. So we've partnered with some great indoor ranges around the country. When we get there, typically we'll have a pistol course, just regular. And then one of those 2 days will be a low light.
Yeah, I think that's very important and something that's often overlooked. People just sort of think like, well, I have a flashlight or I have a pistol mounted light, I'll be fine. No, dude, there's an art to that. And I was a police officer for a long time, working a lot of graveyard shifts. And I thought I kind of knew what I was doing when it came to low light stuff. But, looking back now, it's like, wow, man, I knew like 2 handheld flashlight techniques. There was really no pistol mounted lights then. Not to say that they weren't being made, but we didn't have access to them. We weren't issued them. We couldn't carry them. Actually, I first got a light on my pistol as a K9 handler because I was like, dude, I need another hand. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can't juggle the dog on lead here. a gun in my hand, a flashlight, and all that stuff. So that's sort of the admin sort of caved into that, and then that may have opened the door a little bit for the rest of the guys to get those lights, which I think are an important thing. Let's talk a little bit before we get. I mean, there's so much to talk about, brother. But now
I want to pause you one quick second on the low light stuff, right? So I don't have, like with my students, I don't make the weapons mounted light a requirement. It's optional if you have it. The handheld is, because a lot of people cannot afford a weapons mounted light, but they can afford a handheld light. So I just want to put clarity in there with that. Hey, if you got it, great. We'll employ it in there. But man, handheld, that's what most people are carrying.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense, dude. And that's kind of leading into where I was going next, which is there's pros and cons to each. I highly recommend having both. The advantage, obviously, of having a pistol mounted light is that when your pistol's in hand, you have a light source, which is beneficial. Naysayers will say, yeah, but when you're scanning with the light, your muzzle is crossing over potential non-hostiles. Yeah, that is true. But that also could be said of the Harry's technique or any hands together handheld flashlight technique. You're potentially doing the same thing. So A, you have to be very cognizant of that. And B, there's things you can do. Like, I mean, there's so much you could do. You could slightly depress the muzzle so you're still illuminating an area, but you're not necessarily muzzling the person. There's a lot to it. And people like to argue things. I guess that's one of the things that keeps us going, especially in this social media driven world we live in. But yeah, I think there's definitely a place for both. And obviously with a handheld light, like you mentioned, it's less expensive. It's also more versatile, right? You can do a lot of different things with that. Whereas with a pistol mounted light, you only can point it one direction, and that's where the muzzle's pointing. So yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I think you teaching that is very important. I think, like I said, a lot of people sort of take for granted that, yeah, maybe at night, but I have a light. Well, having a light and know how to use it properly are two different things. And, I got a buddy, Chris Trapp, former Phoenix PD SWAT guy, a very knowledgeable low light dude. And again, even when I thought I knew a lot about low light, then I talked to him and I realized, well, there's more to it than I know. I mean, you can definitely dive down the rabbit hole there, but the bottom line is, even for a private citizen, you have to know the basics of low light.
Sure. And they figure out a lot of things, right? So, just so happens I've got my training aid right here, so you have a lot that think, hey, they're just going to do, the thumb and do the depress. And then after they shoot a couple rounds, because again, this is theory speaking of them just messing around at the house. Then when they're actually shooting some rounds, they're going, man, my thumb's all jacked up.
Yep.
Yeah, buddy. So students have to be careful. And I don't care whether you're, civilian, law enforcement, or military, you have to be careful of the information that's out there. So there's a whole bunch of people that will tell you all kinds of certain things. If nobody's giving you the why behind that instruction, to me, that's suspect. So in all the stuff we're doing, hey man, I'm going to show you some techniques. This is what I think works. I'll give you the why, give you the pros and cons, but people have to get out there and kind of vet some things themselves. Dry fire is great. But at the end of the day, especially, when you're looking at a weapons mounted light, they've got to do some dry fire in there where, let me just do this thumb depress and get my quick illumination. Then we got an intermittent light, or their thumb doesn't reach, or all the things they think can happen once they actually start shooting rounds don't.
Yeah, or their thumb pops off during recoil and they're looking for the light or whatever. Yeah, that's another huge advantage of a pistol mounted light is that you're able to maintain as much as possible that good two-handed firing grip. But the grip is probably going to have to be altered to some degree,
sure,
so that you can have access to that light without having to fumble for it. It's like with a long gun, a lot of people, they may be running a carbine and they're holding it like this, but their light is up here. It's like, dude, you're never going to move your hand up there, find that light and manipulate it in time under duress. You're going to have to run that thing with your thumb so you can just depress the light, or however you're depressing the light, but you have to hold it so you can easily get to the light. You can't, that's too much of a gap to close in a very tight window. So yeah.
And that's where your pressure pads come in, where
yes,
a lot of people, even with the pistols, right? So there are pressure pads for them. Are people using it? It's going to be an added cost. To me, I think, especially with your carbine, that's a have to, not a want to. I want that positive control there. And then for me, I'm taking my pressure pad and kind of putting it almost at the 11 o'clock position on my rail, because that's going to keep it kind of tucked away a little bit. So it's going to prevent me from having a white light AD. And then really at that 9 o'clock, that's where my visible laser or my IR laser is going to be at. So it just, knowing where your pads are at. And again, it all boils down to putting time on the range, getting that dry fire training in there to make yourself successful with whatever platform you're using.
Well said. Rick, are you partial to any particular brand of light, be it handheld or weapon mounted? And what types of things do you look for in a tactical light?
So when it comes, Surefire, you can't beat them. We've also done some stuff with Streamlight, so the thing you have to look at is what's the application. So with all of this stuff, what are you doing with the light? So if you think about this, if I go out and buy the latest and greatest 1,000 lumen light, and then I'm going to try to use it for that home defense scenario, that 1,000 lumen, depending on the colors of your walls, things you have, may be too much light for you. So one of the things we do, like at our low light class, we've got some different lighting options out there just so people can get an idea. When you start talking lumens, they have no clue what you're speaking about, but try to go, hey man, if I'm out in a rural area, maybe 1,000 lumens will work for you scanning out in a rural area. It could be way too much depending on your house, your light walls, hitting mirrors, all this stuff coming back at you. So you just got to be aware when you're sitting there buying whatever light source, how many lumens is it putting out. If you can get up with somebody else that has something similar to what you're looking for, try that beforehand, and then just kind of go, hey, is this what I'm looking for, with my light source? So there's no... You can't do a clear cut, right? My EDC light is different than my weapons mounted light, is different than, the rifle mounted light. So it just, what's the application that you're looking to apply in this low light setting? And then from there, you just got to make the best dedicated decision. And then obviously at the end of the day, hey, what can you afford to purchase? Buy quality, right? I see too many guys that go out and buy this $29.95 pocket light, and then it's good for a day or two, or whatever the case is. So spend, get you a good quality light source. Your life depends on it.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too, as far as lumens. And a lot of people, the advertising is sort of confusing because you got lumens, you got candela, and there's lux, there's all these things. I wrote an article a year or two ago for Guns and Ammo magazine, and it kind of forced me to take a deep dive into what all that means, what's the difference between this and that. And it is a little confusing, and it's not necessarily all about the best light is the one with the highest lumen output, like you mentioned. So it's something you can read about. A lot of this stuff is available online as far as helping you to choose a light. But I certainly prefer one that's pretty simple to operate. I don't want to be messing with 14 switches to get to the mode I want. And if it is a multi-mode, I wonder if you'd agree with me on this. I want the brightest setting initially. I could always go down to an administrative type use, but I don't want to be scrolling through stuff to try to get to a bright light.
Get that maximum light source you can. But you got to test it beforehand. Like, what's the application? So it's one thing to go, hey, I'm getting a light for what? If I'm looking at it for, hey, something goes bump in the middle of the night. Okay, I don't need a super powerful light inside my home. So I agree. If you're sitting there, hey, if you're an officer or something like that, yeah, crank the highest lumens or the highest lumens you've got. But here's the other thing. You have to vet all this stuff, especially these guys that are red dot agencies. What is that light doing to your red dot potentially? So again, if you're going into that evening shift, maybe you bumped your dot down brightness some, but what happens when you turn that light on? Do you still have the dot? Is it there? Is it clearly visible to you? So there's a bunch of things depending on lights, what you have for accessories on your firearm, and then what role you're playing with. Whether you're that law-abiding citizen or that law enforcement officer, you just got to make sure all your equipment's in check.
Yeah, that's a great point. You bring up red dots, and you mentioned earlier the importance of shooting with iron sights, and as an instructor, being able to demonstrate both, I think that's hugely important. I do the same thing even with, I prefer appendix carry. I know there's definitely some advantages to honor behind the hip. And so when I teach a class, I do both so that I'm not alienating one side or the other. So I think it's very important to do the same thing with iron sights. We were all brought up on iron sights, and it's important to be able to shoot. To me, it's like being able to drive a manual transmission car, right? It's like something that you may not use it all the time, but if you're in a situation, you may have to use it. I wonder, I know you are fond of Aimpoint red dots, and you've done some work with Aimpoint, with some of the law enforcement training you're doing. Let's talk a little bit about that before we get into the weeds about red dots. Tell us a little bit about that training that you're doing. Project Officer Safety, is that what it's called?
Officer Survival.
Officer survival,
Yep.
Project Officer Survival. And you're partnered with that, correct me if I'm wrong, with like Aimpoint, Safariland, Walther.
And
Who am I
proper.
missing? Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Tell us a little bit about that. I think it's a great cause.
So we offer free law enforcement red dot pistol training. We travel around the country. So the beauty is with the partnerships that we have, we can provide the officers the red dot, the pistol, and the holster, and then in turn, like Proper's providing them clothing for the event. Here's the thing: the reason we want to do that is we're starting to see the red dot shift within law enforcement, but law enforcement can be kind of a crazy place, right? Hey, they haven't got it yet. And then you've got some agencies going, well, this guy hasn't transitioned. What do you think we're doing with Project Officer Survival, right? I need you to have zero red dot experience. It doesn't matter whether you're running one or not. Come out to the training. We'll start basically using a building block methodology, get you guys straight. Each of our students get a copy of the firearms training notebook. So that way they're actually getting data from the course. And then in turn, it gives them a tool that they can actually develop their dry and live fire training when they get back home. But we just want to add survivability. We're seeing too many law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. And you look at most of the time what's going on, especially if they're a red dot agency. Wow, 2 days. They're going to give them 2 days to do their transition course. And then after that, there is no other training unless they're getting it themselves. So
annual, yeah, the next year qualification, which there's a big difference between that qualification and training as well.
Oh God, that's the biggest crime, I think, within law enforcement, right? Is trying to claim that this test, which is your qual, is somehow training. It's not. All it is just taking the liability from the agency, put it on the individual. So God forbid you're in that deadly force encounter. They'll check the block and go, well, you qualified. Okay, well, what other training did they get? So what we try to do is add survivability to our officers. So basically we start kind of from the ground level. We shoot a Warhog self-eval just to see where they're sitting at. What we see is
that initial assessment, is that with irons or is that with the red dot right off the bat?
No, it's with the red dot. Right
dot right off the bat.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because there's some points that we want to bring up. And part of it is driving home to these officers. Hey, man, I got it. If you got zero experience with it, that's fine. But those that have experience with the red dot, this is basically your performance on demand. Right now, hey, God forbid you're in that deadly force encounter. What are your skill sets sitting at? And then one thing we do removed is I don't have them do a draw from the holster because I don't know what everyone's draw from the holster is at. So we have them start the ready position. 3 shots on one target, 3 on the other, speed magazine change 3 and 3. And then we're actually giving these guys data. So they're pulling 12 pieces of data from this initial eval. And then from there, as the course progresses, they can start seeing, hey, this is where you're at. They can actually start seeing some improvement in there and start getting their marksmanship and gun handling skills. Pretty much where we culminate at the end of the day. We add t-shirts in there for realism, and then we final out the day with shooting under physical duress. So they're actually throwing sandbags around, having to shoot both freestyle, strong, and support hand.
And that's very cool. It's neat that you have them shoot because maybe they don't have any experience with the red dot, but here they are shooting this qualification course sort of cold. One of the first things you do in the course. And then at the end, I'm sure you do something similar again, and they're able to see, wow, this stuff that I learned in the course, it works, and the proof is in the pudding. Look at how I shot this time versus the first time. I think that makes believers out of a lot of people, I'm sure.
So we kind of do it throughout the course because we're capturing data throughout. So prime example, hey, they shoot the Warhog self-eval. They'll get a couple iterations of just the pistol presentation, because if you can present your pistol properly, the dot's going to be there every time you can send the round. So there's some things you have to do, breaking them, in my opinion, mentally, looking for that perfect sight picture, if you want to say, when it comes to the red dot. But after that second iteration of pistol presentation, we go to control pairs. We capture some more data. So we're again putting them on the time. We take a look back. Hey, where were your numbers at for your initial? And they can start seeing the growth. And we do that throughout the course. So now they can actually say, hey, I've got my growth. If something happens, they mess something up, not a big deal. Do you know why you did it? If I can get a shooter to understand what caused you to miss that shot, man, we're making money, because then they understand this is what I need to do to fix it. This is what I did for a good shot. This is what I did for a bad shot. Inside the notebook, we've got a note section. Hey, write your notes in there, because there's nothing worse than learning something on the range. And if you got a memory like me with all my TBIs, like, man, what was that? I got to write stuff down. So I'm a big pen to paper guy.
100%. Me too.
But why revisit kind of lessons learned, if you want to say? Put it in the notes section. So now when they leave, they've got tangible data. They can develop their dry fire plan, work their live fire whenever the time permits. And you're going to get a shooter that's more survivable if they're ever in that deadly force encounter.
Rick, what are some of the most common errors you see with shooters who are transitioning from iron sights to red dots?
So there's two. First of all, I'll address my Glock shooters. So with Mr. Glock's grip angle, you have to do, you have to put that added wrist roll in there. So what you'll see guys, they'll kind of present out straight, but don't realize they need that added wrist roll to bring that dot down in there. And then the other biggest thing I see with guys is when you're going from irons to red dot, the brain wants to play tricks, for lack of better terms. You have to understand, as long as that dot is somewhere in that window, I don't care where it's at, that dot's on target, send the round. And that's probably the biggest thing I tell these guys. Hey, in the window, dots on, send the round, send the round, send the round. Because they somehow think, again, using iron sights, that I've got to somehow get this equal within the window of the housing. I don't. As long as the dot is in the in the window, it's on the acceptable target area, send the round. So once we start getting that, and we've had students, and there's a whole bunch of byproducts. So if you think about red dots on carbines, you've got some agencies out there, some individuals co-witnessing. And like I had a student one time, this officer was struggling because they were trying to co-witness the dot to the front sight post.
I've had that.
And again, you explain all this stuff, you try to address as many people's different learning styles, graphic training aids, all this other stuff. And I think it was just a byproduct of having a co-witness red dot. Once they figured out, hey, it doesn't have to be co-witnessed. Wow. The marksmanship was there. So the other thing is, if I'm not a fan, like what I tell my students, hey man, if you present the pistol out there and the dot's not there, pause. It's not the end of the world. Don't do this fishing around. Look at your irons. Your irons will tell you where your dot's at. Not that I'm looking to do a focal shift change to my irons, but I know for me, if I'm not putting some left pressure with my thumb in the frame of the pistol, just my body style, the gun naturally goes out to the left. I have them pause. Just look at your irons as a reference. Where's that front sight post? And that's going to tell you a lot as a shooter, what you have to do to get that dot so that you're presenting every time and that dot's there.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good bit of advice. I think that sometimes people think that if they drive the pistol to the target and they don't see the dot, that they are going to immediately transition to irons. And I think for a second, human nature is going to be like, where's the dot? Where's the dot? But you're right. If you start playing this game, you're going to be a mess, and that's not going to help you at all. And like my good friend Dave Spalding likes to say, the dot's not going to be way over there or way over there. The dot is going to be just barely off somewhere. So you're not going to have to do those things like this, which is you see that a lot with very new shooters. What's your take on, and it's a lot of personal preference, but what's your take on co-witnessing, as far, not a co-witness with the dot, but as far as having backup iron sights that are visible through the window of the dot? Do you like to keep those down pretty low so you have kind of an uncluttered view? Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Because
I don't need them. Right.
Yeah.
They're there if I do, and I use them for my students in a diagnostic manner. Hey, don't fish. And when I have them look, it's just so they understand, where am I driving it out? A lot of times it's guys either driving the pistol out to the left. It's either high or low, depending on, hey, what platform they're used to doing. So if you look at the Glock shooters, if they're running a Glock pistol, you have to put that added wrist roll just to drop the angle down so that dot's going to be there. But they'll never know if they sit there and start fishing. Now basically the barrel's up high anyway. Hey, pause. Oh, that front sight post is jammed all the way to the top. Oh, I need to bring it down. Boom, dot's there. So it's to add that added wrist roll. And that's why I'm not a big fan of, especially my Glock agencies that are transitioning to red dot. I get it, man, but you're making it that much harder for that student, in my opinion, just getting that added wrist roll in there. And then one other thing too we do, Rich, is we have to educate these law enforcement officers as far as red dots, because I'm seeing people take the advice of gun shops, people buying the cheapest ones. This is a piece of life-saving equipment that you're attaching to your handgun. You have to do your research. You have to go out there and do your T&E. Some guys don't even understand the concept between an open and enclosed emitter. So part of what we do at Warhawk Tactical with the Project Officer Survival is educating them. Hey, man, to me, this piece of life-saving equipment, I want to remove as many fail points in there as I can. In open emitter, you automatically have a fail point in this piece of life-saving equipment. Hey, you've got a shake awake. That's another fail point. You got solar panels. I've seen them fail. Are you buying your optic from China, right? Is it direct mount or is it on a plate? We try to alleviate as many things. I want this piece of life-saving equipment. Hey, when it's time to present out there, the dot's there, clean glass, send the round, and eliminate that threat so you can go home to your family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be robust, and you have to have confidence in your gear, because not that gear necessarily is as important as your skill or your will, as they say, but having quality gear helps. It helps you realize that as long as I do my part, I'm going to be okay. Whereas like if you have a cheap piece of kit, then it's like, well, I hope this thing is there when I present the target. And that's not something you should be worried about. You should be worried about what's happening in front of you, what threat are you dealing with, and those type of things with the situational awareness and all that. But yeah, I think that a closed emitter is really good. And you know, some people that are concealed carry folks or whatever, if there's a garment that's covering your pistol, the vast majority of the time, you can get away with an open emitter sight, I think. But a closed emitter is definitely the way to go for duty use or any gun that's going to be worn openly. And it's just really a better option overall, I think. Talk about the advantage of a closed emitter in like adverse weather conditions. A lot of people that carry red dot sights, for instance, may never have shot them in the driving rain. And guess what? That can change things. Or the, bright sun coming in on you. These are issues that are not necessarily as dramatic with iron sights as they can be with an optic.
Yeah. So a couple of things. The enclosed emitter is the way to go. However, you have some companies out there putting solar panels on there. And I was actually doing a law enforcement red dot instructor development course, and a small municipality went out off the advice of the gun shop, and they went and bought enclosed red dots. However, they had the solar panel on there. The problem is they were cracking the top of the solar panel. So now I have an enclosed emitter, but now I've got all this debris from that solar panel coming down. Now I've got a snow globe effect to this optic, and I've got an intermittent dot because stuff is getting on there. So just be aware of all the gizmos on there. But even like with the concealed carry holder going, okay, hey, I'm going to run an open emitter. What happens? And if we're running the appendix, right? Nobody ever gets any belly button fuzz, but I get that belly button fuzz happens to fall on my optic. Now, when I go to draw it out, it comes just right. And now all of a sudden that debris covers the exposed emitter. I may not have a red dot. So to me, I just want to remove as many fail points in there as I can. When you look at the open emitter, it's exposed to the elements where my enclosed is not. I've got a housing protecting that. I want clear glass. I don't want any type of films or things like that. I want the clearest glass I can get. I want to make sure my optic is robust.
Bright, crisp dot.
And again, a lot of guys think the dot needs to be super bright. It doesn't. I just need it crisp, right? So I don't need that starbursty style. I need a clean, crisp dot. And then the other thing to look at, especially for my guys running an open emitter for duty use, if you slip, fall in the mud, and God forbid you get something not even on the emitter, but basically I'll just call it the ice cream scoop. So you kind of got that L shape, man. If you pack that full of mud, good luck trying to get that out and even get to your, see your stuff where, hey, I've got the enclosed, man. If I get something on the back, quick swipe the thumb. But when these agencies, expand, and I go a lot to my law enforcement guys, right? When you're T&Eing this stuff, you have to get out there and put it through as many different wickets. Just shooting on the nice sunny day, that's not cutting it. I remember I was talking with an agency in Florida. They were going, yeah, we're looking to get some red dots, yada, yada. One of the things I suggested to them is, hey, man, put that thing in your cruiser, crank the AC as low as it'll go, run that, leave it in there for about an hour, and then go to the car, grab the pistol, pull it out. What happens during that that change of environment? Does anything happen? I don't know, but these are things that I would want to know. And again, I always refer to my red dot. It's a piece of life-saving equipment that I'm attaching to this pistol. I want to make sure that I don't have any type of fail points in there. But guys just have to test. And you have to understand, hey man, if I do opt to run an open emitter, all right, you're that concealed carry holder. Hey, I'm in that Walmart parking lot and it's pouring down rain. Could something, could that water get on there? And then next, the dot you want is not there. I don't know.
That's challenging. It's weird when you look at that either through as a result of rain or as a result of a weird sunlight coming in, to see like sort of two different dots or like a prism or it's all blown out. Yeah. That is not a good feeling.
No.
You know what I mean? That's not a good feeling at all.
No.
But what's your take on red dots for carbines, like for law enforcement patrol rifle use and stuff? You advocate of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the standard. So
yeah,
if you think about it, we had, and we're seeing this argument, and they go parallel with the pistol, right? So if you think about it, we had the arguments in the 90s. Hey, we putting red dots on there. Oh, it's going to make you slow. Oh, it's batteries. Oh, it's this. The biggest con we had in the 90s was having a carrying handle on top of our Car 15s. So now you wind up with like a 6-inch hold.
Right over bore, yeah.
Remember those plastic cheek pieces to try to, add all this stuff in there? But we've had all these arguments, right? But we're seeing the same arguments come about for the pistol side. So it's pretty much standard to run a red dot on there. Now, you'll have some people argue, hey, should I get a LVPO? I'm like, what distance you shooting at? So it all depends, the skill of the shooter at the end of the day. So if you think about it, the classic, I think everyone's seen that video of that. I think it was a Seattle police officer. Hey man, pulls up, sip of coffee, sets it on there, goes out to the back, 200-meter shot. But you notice he braced on the side of his vehicle, boom, single shot, suspect down, right? You can shoot at distance with your red dot. And then if you're really that concerned, hey man, get a magnifier for it.
I agree with what you're saying. It's like LVPO, I said it right, LPVO. I always mix that up. LPVO is a great option for certain instances, but for the patrol guy, most of the stuff is going to be way closer than you need that for. And then you're looking through this instead of having a much wider field of view. Yep. And as you're alluding to, I mean, you could take a shot at pretty significant distance, an accurate shot with a red dot on a carbine. And I just think that makes a lot more sense. Plus, then you have that commonality between your carbine and your pistol. And I think that's important too, that you get used to having sort of one sight picture when you're faced with a deadly threat and your gun is trained on them. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
You just have to be aware. You still have some agencies out there that are running carbines that have the fixed front sight post. To me, that's just muddying up the water, in my opinion. I mean, you really don't need it. But again, I got it. That's what you have for your patrol rifle. Just, again, be careful. Don't do the co-witness. Number one, I don't even believe in co-witnessing as far as my irons on my carbine. Especially don't do it with your pistol. But there's the presentation low ready, a little bit different, kind of similar. Biggest thing though, you brought up a great point. If you're running a carbine and a red dot pistol, you have to understand, especially at close distances, for your carbine, you're going to have a point of aim, point of impact difference. Where that truly comes out is you'll see a shooter, hey man, especially with my SWAT guys, is typically who does more, I call it transition, going from a primary to a secondary. I call shooting multiple targets indexing, just so we got clear verbiage. But you'll see it if a guy truly doesn't understand, and this is why we do a lot of work on 3-inch dots. If a guy truly doesn't understand his point of aim, point of impact, he'll basically throw low shots with his carbine because he doesn't know that hold point, and then he'll wind up getting his pistol shots because everyone's, kind of second nature. Hey, just hold center and fire. You have to understand, if you're running a red dot carbine and a red dot pistol, where's my point of aim, point of impact for the carbine? And then obviously for the pistol, you're going to hold at your hold. So, that's probably one of the biggest things that I see bite people when it comes to running carbines and red dots.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of courses where we're shooting in and around vehicles and people fail to take that into account when they shoot their carbine and boom, you got holes in the car. So yeah, that's always a little exciting, but in a real world situation, that would be nightmarish because not only are your rounds not doing you any good, but you're potentially getting stuff back at you and obviously compromising your position and everything else. But, I would like to hear from you as a very experienced special operations background, the different mindsets or the different goals of law enforcement versus military versus private citizen. Because I think some people may assume that we all need exactly the same type of training. And I think you would agree that that's not necessarily the case.
Depends on what the training is. If we're looking at firearms and not looking at the tactical side, just look at the straight firearms, you need to be as proficient as you can. I don't care what side you're on, civilian, military, or law enforcement, right? You should always be trying to achieve, how do I get better? Tactical side, that's a whole nother ball of wax that, as far as going down, hey, what capability do you need? What are you looking to do? What's your threat? But the mindset, I think the mindset's the same. And this is what I teach all my students. Because again, we do address self-defense with your firearms, whether you're doing your pistol or carbine. At the end of the day, this is Rick's opinion. Shooting's an unemotional event. I don't care whether it's people or paper. You have to understand, what am I doing to make the shot? What am I doing where I didn't make the shot? But at the end of the day, everyone gets a vote. And probably for my law enforcement, military guys have been removed from combat a little bit, but really for my law enforcement guys, they see what right and wrong looks like. It's easy to go, hey man, what's a perceived threat? At the end of the day, everyone gets a vote. I go around thousands of people throughout my travels, right? If somebody warrants deadly force, it's pretty evident. You administer deadly force and eliminate the threat, right? And we get into a whole piece where, especially with our Warhawk tactical training targets, we have vitals on there, but they are super light. And then in turn, we add the t-shirts on there because a lot of people are still using this term center mass. And the problem with center mass sets you up for failure. B-27s set you up for failure. We look at our law enforcement officer and goes, why are they all gut shooting? Well, we got some poor marksmanship skills being taught. Then we got poor targetry being taught. And we're not teaching them high thoracic. We're not teaching them where to put their rounds at to stop this threat. And we do it across the board. When it comes to using deadly force, civilian, military, law enforcement, they're all getting taught the same. It's the same application. How do you make yourself better? Hey, if this warrants it, and I go back to the state of North Carolina, that's what I'll quote: imminent threat of death, great bodily harm, or sexual assault, the state of North Carolina tells me I can use deadly force to defend myself. I've yet to see in the legislation, in parentheses, unless you're a law enforcement officer, you got to talk them off the ledge and do this. You have to sit there. Hey man, everyone gets a vote. If they voted wrong, I'm sorry, it's nothing personal. It's unemotional.
Good info. And I like what you're saying because as a former cop, I could speak to someone in law enforcement will dismiss someone who may be, for instance, a very phenomenal competitive shooter. And the cop trains a couple times a year, the salty dog I'm talking about. And he's like, that's competition. That's not. No, dude, that guy can shoot very well because he shoots frequently, and he shoots frequently under not the stress of a life and death encounter, but under the stress of the timer, under the stress of competition, under the stress of being embarrassed and all of those things. So he has a leg up as far as the shooting portion than the cop who trains once a year, or qualifies, as I should say, once a year. Now, the cop may have better tactics, and that may help the cop have an edge or make up some of that gap. But really, I like that you said that it's an unemotional event, because that's proof to what I believe, which is whether you're competitive shooting or your self-defense shooting or your recreational shooting, the goal is always the same: to hit the target, right? And so that's a mechanical process. That's what I would call a hard skill. Whereas in a combat situation or in a self-defense situation, that's more hard skills are coming into play as well, like assessing, finding cover, all this stuff, being reactive to what the suspect has initiated. But if you don't have the hard skills, the marksmanship fundamentals, and all of that down pat, the reloading, the malfunction clearing, then you're going to be using brain power doing those things that should be a given. You should be able to do your gun handling and your marksmanship almost on autopilot, and that frees up that space to be able to assess and respond appropriately to the situation. And another thing that you hit on that's very important, that I hammer home all the time as well, is you have to have a knowledge of the law. not only for the aftermath of a defensive situation, but also for the midst of that situation. Because if you're unfamiliar or unsure whether or not you're legally authorized to do what you're about to do, it's going to probably cause you to hesitate. And you know what hesitation is going to do in a deadly force encounter when seconds matter. So yeah, really good stuff.
I mean, you're talking hundreds of seconds, right? And you're chewing stuff down, because the other big point is, it's one thing to go out in the flat range. It's another thing to kind of work all your skills. Have you ever done force on force training? And if you think about guys that initially do force on force, you ask them, hey man, call your shots. Where were your shots at? I didn't even see my sights. Well, what shirt was the guy wearing? I don't know, right? They're overwhelmed. So we have to indoctrinate these law enforcement officers to doing force on force training as well. And I just kind of look at the aspect, hey, how many times had I actually put sights on another human being, pressed the target or pressed the trigger, had some type of paint projectile come out, hit that individual before actually engaging one, right? So it just becomes second nature. So yes, we want to build our skills in the flat range. And you will always hear me say your skills are built in the flat range. But to enhance that, we have to take it that step further. Hey, the pro time will give you some stress, right? The running the stage will give you some stress. But actually having another human being down there, sending projectiles at you, looking at the situation, playing the environment out, you've got to get that as well, because that's going to help individuals more from my law enforcement side. Hey, God forbid you're in that situation. Hey, I've already ID'd. Yep, he's a threat. He's doing this. There's my cover. There's this. And I can do things, and it's not overwhelming the first time. And you ask a lot of guys, hey man, what happened? I have no idea. That's a rough place to be. Where were your shots? Yeah. I want to sit there. Hey, if it's me and you and we're getting to a gunfight, hey man, I'm going to tell you shots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Boom. There's my 6 shots. They're all right there. If you sit there and go, well, I'm not sure how many I shot, but there's some, lady down there dead. Not my round, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that force on force interactive training is a great way to go. It's kind of a missing link that we're able to address much more now than we were like when I first became a cop in the 90s. But, there's pretty realistic simulators now that you can use. They're not real cheap, but a lot of law enforcement agencies have them. My former agency, we got one. And that doesn't take the place of going to the range. It doesn't take the place of controlling recoil and everything. But it is a good thing to reinforce your ability to think during a situation like that. And so I think there's a lot of validity in that. And also with simunitions, I've done simunitions a lot. Simunitions are marking rounds for those who may not be familiar. Airsoft can work in a very similar manner. But when you get hit with simunitions, it's not going to kill you, but it does sting, it does hurt, and it does. It's scary if you're training for real world stuff, because if you are honest with yourself, you're like, I would have just got shot in the hand. So it motivates you to use good tactics and all of that. So it's really a good way to get you to think. A lot of concealed carry holders too, they'll go and they'll qualify whatever. A lot of these courses are so ridiculous. Maybe they'll fire 50 rounds or less or 30 rounds, and then they get their concealed carry permit. And then they think, that they're John Wick or whatever as they're walking around in society. But it's like, dude, you may not even get to that gun. You got to have some empty hand skills. You got to know the law. You got to be aware, some tactical knowledge. I'm not saying that you're going to be, a special operations dude, or you're going to know all of this elite level stuff. You have to understand basic stuff that, just because you see something that might justify you to draw your gun doesn't mean that you should draw your gun. Is your kid with you? Have you paid attention? Is there another dude who's with this guy who's holding up the clerk? I mean, there's a lot to think about other than just drawing and shooting. That's the easy part. But what I'd like to do, Rick, since I have you here and you have so much military experience, which is at a very high level, I'd like to go back just a little bit to that and ask you if maybe early on in your career, was there any moment that kind of caused you to kind of change the way you think about shooting, self-defense, and all of that stuff? Like something that you experienced maybe on one of your deployments that sort of really heavily affected the way you think about this stuff.
Yeah. So why am I such an advocate of gun handling? And that's just manipulating your firearm. Because I'm alive today because some savage couldn't manipulate his folding stock AK-47. He had the drop on me all day long. He tried to press that select lever 3 times, right? His inability to be able to manipulate his firearm cost him his life. So that's part why we harp at Warhog Tactical. Hey, man, you've got to have good gun handling skills, and then understand at that moment of stress, you're going to drop down some levels, right? So don't think, hey, I'm up here running this all the time. It's going to kick down. You're going to have a whole bunch of things going on, especially if you've never been in that situation before. So that was a huge one, right? Hey, dude,
yeah,
you had me. Well, you lost it because you couldn't do gun handling. So it's a big reason why we push it at Warhog Tactical. And then, prior to that, I was super fortunate enough early on in the 90s to train with Jerry Barnhart. And that really opened up my eyes to, man, I thought I was training. No way. Right. Jerry's
I've heard about him. Never had opportunity to train with him, but yeah, I've heard stories.
Just a super intense guy. Right. But could deliver the information, and then in turn for you as the shooter, because at the end of the day, the success to shooting is how can I diagnose myself? And here's one point that, especially with our red dot stuff, the red dot is a phenomenal tool to diagnose your pros and your cons. So if you think about it, if I've got a shoddy grip and I fire a shot and I see my dot go here and it's raising way up here and kind of dropping back down. Okay. Hey, if I crank down my grip, get a better grip on there, hey, and it's just moving right here. Okay, cool. Or am I overdriving the gun where now, hey, the dot lifts and it's coming back to the target going down because I'm trying to push into it, right? There's all kinds of things we can do. Being able to call our shots. The dot's a phenomenal tool if guys can kind of open their eyes and use this dot as a diagnosis tool as well. You do that, man, push yourself and don't always practice the good stuff, right? Okay. Hey, I'm great at this. Get out and practice the hard stuff. You bring a great point for the concealed carry holder. Try appendix, try the strong side, see what's going to work for you. If it's me and I'm looking at somebody new to concealed carry, hey, if you've worked in outside the waistband, I'm naturally going to start you on the strong side. Then we'll get you over to the appendix, right? But it's using that building block methodology. While you're testing out your clothes work, all these things you have to do, especially for the concealed carry guy.
Yeah. And there really is a lot to it. Like most things, there's surface level stuff. I bought a gun, I have minimal training, but there's so much to it. One of my mentors, Kelly McCann, he taught us to put like fishing line through our garment in a certain way so that you can not have it wrap around your hand as you're trying to clear it. For instance, some people put a weight in there. Some people will sew a few quarters in this area here, at the bottom of their shirt so that their shirt will stay covering their rig, and also so that they have a better chance of successfully clearing that garment to get to the gun. So yeah, as much as you want to deep dive into it, it's probably justified. It's not, some people may call it paranoia, but I just call it like, planning for worst case scenario. And it doesn't mean that everything's all doom and gloom. It just means that you're prepared. And when you are prepared, I think you can be a little bit more relaxed in the fact that, you're able to respond appropriately if you have to.
100%. And think about this. If I am a well-trained concealed carry holder, if you think about this, predators, and that's what these savages are, they're predators. They're out there looking for easy prey. I'm not out there boasting I've got a gun. I'm not out there printing, right? I'm not out there open carrying. Nope. I've got my firearm, but you should carry yourself in a way because, hey, if you make eye contact with that predator, he ain't looking at you, right? Another predator's not going to go after another predator. He's going to, where's that easy prey? So having that skill set, here's the thing. I never want to use my firearm again, but God forbid you come up and mess with me or my family. Sorry, dude. Like I said, unemotional. You voted, you're going to get the gas. And that's the biggest thing people need to understand. I have the tool with me. The thing is, when you don't have the tool, or if you're this concealed carry holder, well, I don't need it today. I'm just going here. I'm departing the residence. I am armed. Now, granted, I got to take into considerations, right? Depending where I'm traveling, you've got certain state laws you've got to deal with. There's certain places you can go or can't go as a concealed carry holder. Make sure you understand that stuff. And then the other part too is like we're partnered with U.S. Law Shield, because God forbid, if I am in that deadly force encounter, I want to know that, hey man, I can pick up the phone. I'm going to talk to an attorney, even though I'm well within my rights. It's just giving you that legal protection in there. So the legal defense for self-defense, because at the end of the day, I fully believe myself, my ability to determine the situation. I'm not so much worried about the criminal part as I am that civil, right? And man, old Johnny, who's got a rap sheet 3 miles long, here comes, oh, he never did anything wrong. Johnny was the best kid. That's really the part. And even for my law enforcement officers, right? That's the part. And I harp to them. If you look at PBA, FOP, they might give you some protection, but they care about the agency, right? If they start going onto that civil, they're going to throw you under the bus. So it's having that peace of mind. I don't want anything mentally for any of my students, anybody out there, myself, to sit there in that moment where I have to use deadly force. And I hear too many officers saying it. Well, I should have shot that guy. Well, why didn't you? And then it's like, well, no, I don't know. And then when you start extrapolating the truth, well, I don't want to lose the house. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to
Didn't want to be on the 11 o'clock news.
Right. And you're lucky to be alive. Yeah. Right. So this guy really wasn't in it to win it. What happens when you come across the guy that's in it to win it? Now you're going to go 6 feet in the ground. Right.
Well, quite frankly, early in my career, we had a SWAT team and we got probably a little overconfident because we were doing a lot of search warrants on meth labs and stuff at the time. And everything went pretty well. It went pretty well because we didn't encounter motivated resistance. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to think you're better than you are when you haven't confronted that guy. And in law enforcement, it's the same thing. You can get in several scuffles and start to think, well, I don't need to train in martial arts. I'm good to go. I've gotten through all these situations. Well, you've gotten through the situations probably because there was other officers there with you. It was probably a multiple officer versus single suspect situation. Secondarily, maybe the suspect was only trying to get away, which is much different than a suspect who doesn't want to get away, who wants to take it to you. And that's the person that we have to be prepared for. And along those lines, Rick, I wanted to get your take on the importance of basically empty hand skills and weapon retention skills, because those are much more likely to be needed than actual marksmanship skills for the private citizen. Do you address that, or is that something that you teach the shooting part and you let the martial arts instructors and all that deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a limited amount of time with people, right? So we address it. But here's the thing, you're not going to get it. Even if I were to try to combine some type of hand skills in a course, something's going to give, right? Either you're going to lose the time with marksmanship or you're going to lose the hand skills. So here's the thing, you're signing up for my course to learn firearms training. That's what we're going to teach you. However, like you said, it's a whole package deal. I've got to have my hands skilled. Yes, I like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it is a piece of the whole puzzle. If you don't have striking skills, right? Look at something like Muay Thai. Hey man, you're in close enough. I'm going to clinch you. I'm going to put my knee on your chin and you're going to go to sleep. And then for law enforcement officer, I put some silver bracelets on you. Hey man, it's an easy day, but guys don't have the skills, right? So this whole self-defense is not a piece of the firearm, is a tool for a specific thing, but it doesn't mean that tool always comes out, right? I may have a guy causing some dramas. He doesn't warrant deadly force, right? But he requires something. I may have to go to hands to sit there and take care of it. So you have to be a well-rounded individual, and it takes time, right? You got to put fitness in there. Our guys actually working out. So we do something, I say me, my morning ritual, I do something called fitness and firearms. So using the firearms training notebook, I formulate my plan for my workout. So I work that set. Once that set's done, bam, we're out dry firing. So first set works good. Second one might have some sweat depending on the time of the day. Hands might be a little fatigued. By the third one, man, we're out there smoked, but it's working it, right? So I'm getting 2 for the bang of 1. We got Bob down there. We beat up on Bob for a bit. You've got to train every aspect of it because you don't know. And this is what I harp, especially to my law enforcement officers. Oh, dark, dirty, side of the road. It is just you. Backups nowhere to be found. What happens when you're dealing with that guy? And guys,
the guy who doesn't want to escape, who wants to take you out. Dude,
Maybe he's sitting there going, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to be the police and I'm going to go kill me a cop. And I'm going to put a badge on. I'm going to steal your car. Now I'm going. Right. And we've seen it too many times where officers they're not well-rounded enough to shut the situation down. Whether, hey, it could have been shut easily at the start with just having some hand skills. But then when it does go deadly, then they don't have the skills there. Right. You have to, if you're carrying a gun for a living, I don't care whether you're the armed civilian, law enforcement officer, or military, you have to constantly be training. Going to Rick's course. Wow, great. Thank you for coming. But your journey doesn't stop there. It continues to go. And that's why, at least for the guys at our courses, the firearms training notebook, that's a huge piece because we want to go, hey, get your dry fire in there, spend time dry firing, figure out those areas you need to work on. And then, oh, by the way, you can put your fitness stuff in there as well. So now we can keep going on. Hey, you learned something new, put it in the notes section. So you have to constantly be mastering your skill. It's not, even with me, God, who knows how many years I've been shooting guns, doing all this stuff. I'm still learning. I'm still training. You never hit that pinnacle. You always have to be improving.
A couple things you mentioned there are really important. One is I like that you're not trying to do too much. That was one of the things I tried to do early on as an instructor is I tried to give the students everything that I had learned over the course of multiple years in a 2-day course. And so it's like it's the old, drinking out of a fire hose thing. And then as I got more experienced as an instructor, I realized, dude, you need to pare that way down, make it digestible, and just know that you can't impart that much knowledge on these people in that short a time. You're going to get to a point of diminishing returns. So when I would watch, the way my mentors, Dave Spalding, Kelly McCann, these guys did it, they were a lot more skilled than me, a lot more experienced as instructors, and they're teaching a lot less in each class. But I do like that you are kind of sticking to this because I'm sure what you cover in your class is more than enough, probably more than some of these people can even handle. If you tried to add weapon retention and all these other things to it, it gets to be overwhelming to where it's not focused on any particular area. Another thing you mentioned that's really important is no matter how good you are as an instructor, no matter how many hours the course is, the student will not retain those skills unless they take them home and practice it. And you keep mentioning a firearms training notebook, which seems like a very good idea. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that, what that is?
Yeah, so the firearms training notebook is just that. It is a notebook. Watch this. I'll grab my graphic training aid here.
Nice.
So you guys shrunk the studio down a little bit, so you can't see all my stuff. But this here is that is the firearms training notebook. Okay, developed by myself and my co-author Mark Kelly. So I've known Mark 30 plus years. We're in the Army together. He just retired out of law enforcement after 31 years. But long story short, we would keep our own notes. So even when I was I had my own notebook, if you want to say, for my firearms training. Obviously, you got to pair it with the pro timer because that's the tangible to get the data. Is it the best? No, because I'd want to ID a target, right? But we use the audible stimulus. And then actually, when you look at it, something we put in there was just some QR codes just to take you to some different stuff. We actually got that. Eddie Gallagher was a guest of ours of On the Range podcast. And Eddie talked about when he wrote his book, he put QR codes in there. It's like ingenious, right? So let's put some QR codes, try to embrace technology. But really, we give guys some ideas for, hey, some different dry fire stuff. But really, the book starts right there at the Warhog self-eval. Okay. And simple 12-shot drill from the ready, at the 5 with the pistol, 7 with the carbine. From either the low ready or the ready position, present out 3 on a 3x5 card, 3 and a 4x6 card, speed magazine change 3 and 3, right? That starts where things are at. And it gives you kind of your baseline, your tangible. Hey, where's your performance on demand? I'm not a fan of cold drills, cold starts, warm-ups. It is straight performance on demand. Where are you at right now? God forbid you're in that deadly force encounter. And then from there,
if you have a 1 second draw, Rick, on your 8th attempt, you don't have a 1 second draw.
It's got to be consistent and repeatable. And then, oh, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Am I doing one of these where my hands are all cheating to that spot, right? So am I at that competition where I'm almost touching, hands already there? if you really want to go, hey, where's your, and especially for my concealed carry holders, right? You really want to see where your draw to first shot is. Put your winter garments on, go get you a couple bags in your hands and just be walking and let somebody just hit the pro timer and react off of that, right? That's when you're going to see. Think about it. Am I holding a water bottle? Do I got things in there? We don't do all this stuff because we're trying to chase this time. And time is important as a gauge to look at our skill set. However, are we actually doing stuff there? Are we actually walking, moving, or are we just standing stagnant, hands prepped, ready to go? So just be cognizant on that. The other point is for my law enforcement officers, hey, if you're running something like a Safariland level 3 retention holster, are you keeping the hood up or are you flipping the hood forward?
I hate that.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all these things in there. But getting back to the notebook. So kind of we got our drills section, right? Kind of write whatever the drill is. You got date, time, different stuff, target, because that's important because we drive home to our students. Hey, man, you can't beat yourself up. So we chase this arbitrary time. Okay. And we'll go back to the 1 second draw. Okay. 1 second draw. What's the size of the target? How far? So if I put you on a 3-inch dot at 5, you might get the 1 second draw. You might not, right? But then if I open it up, hey, give you an IPSC style A zone, so you got to be careful how we're judging the performance because at the end of the day, I need the marksmanship there. In my opinion, the rest is going to follow. And then we've got another follow up in there. There'll be a Warhog self eval. We got 3 of them in there. So it's just kind of a check on learning. Hey, if you've progressed for a bit, right, go back out and shoot it. And then you notice here, the notes section. I'm big in, hey, whatever, put your notes in there because that way there's nothing better going back, look at my notes. Hey, what did I learn? And then not repeating the same mistakes.
I love the concept of that because you have all that information in there and you're actually writing in that book, correct? Mm-hmm. I mean, so that you have that, you don't have to think, well, I took notes on something. Where was my notes on that? Or how did I do last time? That's just a very convenient and smart way, frankly, to be able to have that tangible information that you can go back to and gauge your progress, or hopefully not, but maybe your regression. Maybe you didn't get to the range very often and now you're doing worse than you were before. But it's a way to keep yourself honest for sure. Yeah.
So one thing we do, it's called the monthly skill builder. So I also freelance write for the Safariland Cadre blog. And with that, we've started this monthly skill builder. So what I tell guys is, hey, man, read the blog at the beginning of the month, whatever that skill is. And we kind of used the self-eval, and this has been months back, is that building block, right? But we kind of took the self-eval, broke it down into stages. So let's look at the pistol presentation. Just presenting the pistol from the ready position out to target, firing around on whatever size target. If I go out to the range, I do that 10 times repeatedly, extrapolate my data. Now I come back and start working on my dry fire plan. The key part is, am I putting the time in to work on this dry fire? And then go out and revisit it, shoot another 10. Let's just see where it's at. Now I got it. You're going to have that fluke in there, right? We're human beings. Things are going to happen. Probably the magazine change is a great example. Hey, man, every once in a while you fumble them up. It's okay. I say it's okay. What's the learning aspect? Hey, man, I didn't get a good purchase on there. I didn't do a good center line sweep when I was going for that mag, or I didn't reset my kit, right? So, hey, I thought it was in position 1. It's actually in position 2, or I forgot to put a mag in there altogether. I shoot one, the mag falls out because I didn't, seat it properly. So there's learning that can be done, but that's the whole thing. It's a firearms journey. To me, the journey is never complete. We're always trying to get better. And then kind of the final piece we got in there is at the very end of the book, we've got a section. It's basically building, if you want to set some type of course of fire up on the range. So there's nothing better than going out there, setting up a course of fire. But I took no measurements. I didn't pace anything off, or I did, but then I forget. Man, write that stuff down to go, hey, man, I'm going to shoot at 10. First target's I'm going to shoot here. Here's the line. My first target's at 10. I'm going to have another one at 12, another one over here at 5. Whatever you've got, it doesn't matter. But if it's written down, I know the distance. Now I can repeat it, set it back up. So if this is going to be something I'm going to put in my wheelhouse, Now I can go back and repeat it versus, hey, it's kind of close, kind of not. So yeah, it's just a tool. It's just a tool for guys that, and again, I plug my fitness in there as well. So in the, this section here, I'll actually put, hey, whatever my workout is, so I've got all my workout stuff in there. And then down here, I use kind of towards this bottom half, I'm putting what my dry fire training is. So, hey, man, get the set knocked out, go work on this. Get the set knocked out, go work on that.
No, I like that. I like that, brother. It's very organized and very convenient. Is that a book that you sell as a standalone, or is that something that people get when they take your course, or how does that work?
So the book is available on Amazon. So we went through the whole process of learning how to self-publish. By the way, Amazon's a bunch of crooks, but that's here nor there. You want to know more about that? Hit me up, sidebar at warhog.com. No, but we sell it on Amazon. But then what we've changed for 2025, because before it used to be, hey, man, we recommend. To me, we've seen too many gains from it. It's, hey, you're going to get a copy of the Firearms Training Notebook. So especially our Project Officer Survival, these guys are paying nothing for the training, right? It is free for them. All they have to do is bring 400 rounds. And then, oh, by the way, they're getting a copy of the Firearms Training Notebook. We want to see that change in law enforcement. We want to see the culture change to go, how can I sit there and get guys to train on their own? And what I've told people is this is a fantastic tool. If you're in law enforcement leadership position, if you get your officers a copy of the Firearms Training Notebook, right? They understand how to work it. Man, if you're a roll call agency, easy. Hey, man, tomorrow bring your books in. And if you got a guy and his book looks like this and he's never cracked the cover, he's not putting the time in, right?
Yeah.
But then in turn, do something to incentivize your people. I don't care if you sit there, hey, man, and again, I hate to even say the qual, but all right, hey, you're the top dog for the qual. All right. Give him a parking spot. Do something to go, this guy's performing, hopefully, so other people will start, kind of getting on board and doing their training as well. Because, it, as well as I, the last thing you want is, oh, Schmuckles is showing up as my backup, and I know how Schmuckles shoots. I don't really have backup.
Yeah, Schmuckles sucks, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, as we start to wind down here, brother, where can people go to sign up for one of your courses, figure out, maybe purchase the book, or figure out like what you're up to, what kind of things you have going on? Because it sounds like you are an extremely busy guy who, is retired from a very chaotic career, but it doesn't sound like you're sitting there with your feet up either and drinking beer all day. So tell us what you're up to and where people can go to follow you.
Yeah. So the easiest way, warhog.com, warhogg.com. That's your one-stop shop for everything Warhog Tactical. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Trust me, we'll not inundate you with a bunch of stuff because you're looking at the newsletter guy. I'm probably 3-4 weeks behind on sending anything out anyway. But, whether it's our courses coming up, training videos, on the range podcast. We've also got a members page on there, our crew membership in honor of Duco. So Duco was my military working dog. I lost 5 July 2021 to osteosarcoma. So we also help out retired SOF canines. We got the loop, or our canine products, our loop leash, Warhog swag, but we try to make it for that firearms enthusiast who's looking, hey man, you want to get some instructional information? You can swing by there. I'm not a fan of driving people. You'll see the little sidebar. It's got all of our social stuff. Hey, I appreciate it, but we've been zucked before. So as a entrepreneur, spending all this time and effort to build a following on Instagram, and then all of a sudden something I don't control and they opt that you violated something and they shut you off. And then, we do stuff with other companies as well. So for example, we're partnering up with Second Chance Canine. So they're doing their annual fundraising event out at the Royal Range. So kind of for his patrons, Travis is we're kind of doing a collab, his patrons, and we dub our patrons, our crew, but giving them kind of a day of training. So it'll be firearms training, CQB training, and then medical training. And then the following day, I think he's going to have a competition out there where people can win guns and stuff like that. But we're working on kind of our partnerships for 2026 with different companies. So, if you're a firearms company out there that wants to partner with us with Project Officer Survival, adding survivability to our law enforcement officers, reach out to us.
Let's plug those current sponsors again. You got obviously Aimpoint, Safariland, Walther,
yep. and proper
okay,
clothing.
Proper. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Sponsors, I don't like using the word sponsors, right? We're partners, because the key part is it's a partnership together where it's mutually beneficial. Hey man, we're able to get certain products in these law enforcement officers' hands. And then, oh, by the way, giving them some training to add to their survivability. I don't want to have another law enforcement officer send me a note, because currently we've got 4 that have reached out to us post-course and said, hey man, that stuff you taught saved my life. I don't want another one. I want guys trained. I want guys that, God forbid, evil pokes its head, they can shut it down. But we're open to partner with, whatever it may be, to try to help people, especially law enforcement officers, add to their survivability, i.e. the whole Project Officer Survival.
Yeah, like-minded companies for sure. Do a lot more together than they can separate.
Yes, sir.
Well, dude, you gave us a ton of great information today. I really appreciate you being on. Thank you very much for your time, Rick.
Hey, thank you, buddy, for having me on.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode with Rick Hogg. If this episode resonated with you, be sure and let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Aimpoint's Taking Aim podcast. We'll see you next time.